Not sure if you started already, but we don't hear the teacher on the Zoom. Thank you.
Chaya Atkins.
Cheshvan.
And Hanabera.
That's me.
Okay. How do you pronounce your last name?
Megari.
Megari.
Better is my last name as well.
Okay, better. Okay.
So I have two last names.
Okay.
I'm just Hannah, not Hannah. I'm just Hannah.
Hannah, okay. I'm here. Alea Ferdman. Okay. Rachel.
Hi.
O'Connor. Oh, yeah. Okay, Chana Roman. Chedwa, Beth Shapiro.
Yeah.
And,
We were reading it, nobody class.
okay. Shira. Oh. And Rachel Chana Tahir. Malka. And Esther. Okay, Esther. Okay. Yes, I have. You told me that you're here. Okay.
Oh, this is for this week.
Okay, we the halacha that we were dealing with last week was plowing, which is to soften the ground. So all of those activities, preparing the ground for planting, goes into this category, the halacha of chorech, which is plowing.
What page, Rabbi?
So this is on page 88. 89. So on page 88, 89. So the idea of plowing is to loosen the ground. We're pushing a carriage on soft ground, an area that's enclosed in an area where you're allowed to carry. Is there an issue in pushing a carriage on the ground where you will see that the wheels will make a line on the ground? Is that similar to plowing, or is it permissible? What? Similar to plowing. Any other thought on this? Again, pushing a carriage, a wheelchair in an area that you're allowed to carry. There is an Arab there, so that's not an issue. It's in a yard that's enclosed, fenced in. Is there an issue where the ground is soft? You're going to push the carriage, and you're going to see the lines that the wheels made. Any thought on this? So
It's allowed.
Should be allowed. Why? You just made now lines in the ground. Why is that allowed?
Your intention was not to plant.
Okay, your intention is not to prepare the ground for planting. Okay, well, why will it not be rabbinically prohibited? We know that the things that you do, that's not the intention. It would not be a Torah prohibition, but it would be a rabbinic prohibition. But still, your answer is correct. We're trying to now find out why. You are permitted to push the carriage, even though you're going to be left with lines. After you come to your destination, you'll have lines. It is permissible. Now we're trying to figure out why. Why is it permissible? How is that different than plowing? Again, plowing means preparing the ground for planting by loosening the ground. It's not just making lines in the ground, it's loosening the ground. What is the result when a carriage goes over the ground? It's not loosening it. It's not loosening it. What is it doing? It's compressing it. So it's the opposite of plowing. So it does not go into the category of plowing, and therefore it is permissible. Your intention is not to make lines in the ground, and it's not, and it's doing the opposite of plowing. It's compressing the ground, and that would be similar to when a person walks on soft earth. Same thing, you're going to be leaving footprints. But again, this is permissible because you are compressing the earth. You're not in any way preparing the ground for planting. You're not loosening the ground, you are compressing the ground. Now, what happens if someone is now dragging something on the ground? Okay, you have your sukkah outdoors. You want to bring a chair from the house to the sukkah. The place is enclosed. You're allowed to carry there. And you don't want to carry the chair. You want to drag it on the ground. Are you allowed to do that? Now, again, our chair does have legs to it that when it's going to be dragged, it's not compressing the earth. Okay, now is there an issue? When would it be permissible? When would it not be permissible? What would be the story with our chair?
It went loose in the ground, right?
Well, that's my question. Is it going to loosen the ground or not?
Wait, sorry, what was the scenario?
The scenario, you're having this chair. You're going to bring it to the sukkah is on earth, and you're going to be dragging the chair from your house to the sukkah. It's going to go across the earth. Is that permissible or not?
No.
What would be the issue? Again, what's the issue? What are we concerned about? Let's
Making a furrow.
making a furrow. Okay. So dragging it. So as far as carrying is concerned, it's an enclosed area, so it's not a carrying issue. It's only now making furrows. So then it would depend. How heavy is the chair? Is it definitely going to make a furrow or not? So if it is definitely going to make a furrow because it's that heavy, when you're dragging it, you're definitely going to, when you look back, you're going to see now the two lines that has been softened the ground, dug up the ground. So then if you definitely know before you're going to start that the result is going to definitely be the digging up of the ground, loosening the ground, that is called psikresha. Psikresha means something that you do an act that even though your intention is not to get these results, but you know beforehand that you are going to get the results. And I would tell you that would be what happens if you have in your refrigerator, you have food. And you know that you did not close the light in the refrigerator before Shabbos. And you know that when you're going to open the door, even though your intention is not to open the light, your intention is to get the food from the refrigerator, but you know that the light is on. And now, are you allowed to open the refrigerator or not? The answer is no, because it's psikresha, even though your intention is not to open lights, but you know that that's going to be the result, and what is going to happen. So that's called psikresha. It would be removal of a head where you know the results, what's going to be. So in the case of psikresha, you're not allowed to. However, if it's not definite, so here we're going to drag this chair across, and you don't know for sure that it's going to happen. Could be not. Maybe some spots will, some spots not, but it's not a definite result that you're going to be plowing the ground, that you are permitted to do so. It would be similar to, okay, we're going to bring that to our next malacha. We'll discuss that as well. So if you're going to be doing an act, and even if the end, some of the ground was dug up, no prohibition was committed, no malacha was committed because your intention was not to do so, it was not definitely going to happen, and if it did happen, you're not concerned about it. Now, we have on the page 88 we have someone whose shoes are now muddy on the bottom, and we want to clean them before we go into the house. So now we have a choice. Where are we going to clean our shoes? Cleaning the shoes on the ground, the issue would be what happens if you're going to rub the ground. We spoke in the beginning of the Halacha that preparing the ground would also mean filling in holes, leveling the ground. That is something you cannot do on Shabbos. Even if your intention is not to do so, not to do it to improve the ground for planting, but if you know that if that is the result, the Rabbanan say not to do it. So now we have our muddy shoes and cleaning them on the earth. Is that an issue or not? Rubbing them down to get the mud off the bottom of your shoe. Is that an issue? Doing that on the earth?
Well, if you tear up the ground, it is.
Yes, it is an issue because also as you're doing it, you're putting on pressure, because without pressure, the mud is not going to go off your shoe. So you're putting on pressure, you're really rubbing it on the ground. And if there is any imperfection on the ground, if there are holes or something, you will be filling it in. You will be leveling the ground, you'll be filling in the ground, you'll be spanking the ground. So that is not our first choice. So we do not do that. So then what you would do is scrape it on the bottom of the curb. That'll do a good job. They'll take off the curb will do it, and wood. So our first choice as is, so to scrape it on the wall. Preferred practice is to wipe them on a wooden beam or a wall. According to all authorities, there's no wood handy, so rather on the wall than the ground. Again, the curb would be your best choice.
I have a question.
Yes? Yes? Oh, okay.
Or maybe the computer, I don't know, but my question was, like on Shabbos, like let's say if you get like a thing on your clothing, like are you supposed to wait till after Shabbos to?
Yes.
get rid of
The
it?
Covet Shabbos Kodesh, you're going to go with that stain on Shabbos unless you change. But that's in the honor of Shabbos, even though you want to look presentable on Shabbos. You don't walk around with a stain on Shabbos, but still Shabbos tells you you can't.
So it's not allowed like to put water.
You can't, no water, no seltzer, no salt. All these things we're going to be discussing when we come to the Malacha of whitening, cleaning clothes. Okay, so now,
What about rubbing on the ground? Rubbing it if the mud is wet, can you rub the shoes on the grass, not on the ground?
yes, you may. Yes, you may. We're not going into the issue of grinding the earth if it dried out. That's not what we're discussing now. We leave that for the Malacha of grinding. So now one more issue together with our plowing. And plowing would only be on earth that when you make the furrow, it's going to stay. If you make a hole and immediately it caves in, you didn't do anything. So something like that would be loose sand. Sand, earth is muktzah. Unless you prepared it for use before Shabbos. Back in the day, when they had earthen floors, they would bring in sand before Shabbos, so it's not muktzah, it is going to be used on Shabbos. They would then sprinkle your earthen floor in your house, so it would be presentable after you finished eating. That was so preparing sand before Shabbos for use on Shabbos makes the sand not muktzah. How would that translate nowadays? A sandbox. Sandbox where children play with sand. Is that permissible? Can we let the children, the small children, 2-3-year-olds, play in a sandbox when you take them to the park? And many of the parks do have sandboxes there. If you don't mind them playing in the sand on Shabbos, with their clothes getting full of sand, their shoes, their socks. But if that is not the issue as far as that's concerned, you're letting them play on Shabbos. Are they allowed to play on Shabbos in the sandbox? And the answer is yes. Sand is not muktzah. However, it's only if the sand is dry. Again, the criteria would be when they make a hole, what happens to the hole? It'll all fill back in because sand does not have any body to it. If, however, the sand is moist, then actually you're building. If you take a pail, you fill it up with moist sand, you turn it over, you got a pail, you got a little, you got a little building over there. That cannot be done. It's only if it's completely dry, then the children may play in it.
On Shabbos, like going to the beach, walking.
So here again, the beach sand is muktzah. Children cannot play in the sand, even if it's dry, because that's why I said only a sandbox we actually prepared before Shabbos. The sand of the beach is muktzah. You are permitted to walk there. That you're allowed to walk on the beach side. The fact that you will be making footprints, shoe prints, that we're going to discuss at a later thing. That's also not an issue. It's not that even if your shoe does have writings on them, sneakers have their brand that's on it. But again, so we'll leave that for our writing malacha. But as far as plowing is concerned, then all of this is permissible. The sand is muktzah on the beach, but the sandbox would be permissible. Okay, so any questions on our plowing? So we do see that even though plowing is something that is something far removed from us, but it does apply. I mean, you can see now examples that it would, dragging something on the ground, pushing a carriage, playing with the sand. All of this would be permissible and part of this malacha. So in the Mishkan, after the plowing and then the planting, and then the next step is after it grew, they had the plants that they were going to use for coloring the curtains of the Mishkan. As we come now to the next malacha on page 91, called Kotzer or Katsira. So this is the malacha. Okay, kotzer is to reap. So we were speaking using a special tool, which is a reaper or a sickle. So this is the normal way of how the plants are removed from its place of growth. And this was done in the Mishkan because they used these plants and eventually they made dye with these plants and it was used to color the curtains. So this is one of the 39 malachas, or number 3. So the Av Malacha is if it's done with a special tool that's specific for reaping, a sickle, a reaper. And then the Toldos, which is also the same prohibition, a Torah prohibition, is picking fruit by hand from the place where they grow, or shaking a tree to make the fruit fall off, or lifting a flower pot with holes from the ground and placing it on a shelf or other object or bringing it into the house, which it's preventing it from receiving sustenance from the ground. So these are all Torah prohibitions. The same would also apply, taking something from its place of growth. Let's have some examples that we did not mention here. Over here we mentioned cutting the grain with a sickle, pulling plants or picking fruits by hand, shaking the tree to make the fruits grow, to fall off. What would be another example that would go into this category that would be considered reaping? Any other thoughts, even though it's not in the ground, but still it would be a Torah prohibition. Any thoughts on this? We spoke about the avocado seed that was put into the water and it sprouted roots and now it has leaves growing out. So now removing the seed from the water, that is the same as removing it from the ground. It's taking it from its place of growth. That is a Torah prohibition. The same would also be when we have bean sprouts. Bean sprouts are also in a moist place. They are growing, they gave out the roots. Removing them from their place of growth, that would be also this malacha. If your bean sprouts are in the refrigerator, so there, do they grow in the refrigerator? No. So then you're allowed to put your bean sprouts in your salad, taking it from the refrigerator, because it's not from its place of growth. So it would be outside where you have it on a surface that's a moist surface that promotes the growth of bean sprouts. Did anyone grow bean sprouts? Can give me some? No. Okay. So I'm assuming that in the refrigerator it does not grow. So just storing it there to keep it fresh. So then there's no issue taking the bean sprouts and putting it into your salad. That would be fine. Another example would be moss on a rock, moss on a surface. That is its place of growth. Removing that on Shabbos is a Torah prohibition. The same would also be with mushrooms. Even if they're not in the ground, but they are attached to something that's their place of growth, removing mushrooms on Shabbos would also go into this category that it is a Torah prohibition. Now, the Rabbanon made safeguards, and they wanted to prevent a person from transgressing the Torah prohibition of removing something from its place of growth. So now we have some of the safeguards on page 92. So number 3 is climbing trees to prevent detaching branches, leaves, or fruits. The sages further forbade making any use of the tree as tying an animal to it, placing an object on it, removing objects from it out of concern that one may climb the tree and detach a part of the tree. Okay, so now let's look at the tree itself. What is the status of a tree? Are you allowed to make a tree move, which we call the term muktzah? Does everyone know what muktzah? The term everyone's familiar with muktzah. Muktzah means something that is set aside not to be used on Shabbos. So our pen is muktzah, our tzedakah is muktzah. All items that cannot be used on Shabbos cannot be handled on Shabbos. Now, are you allowed to touch the leichter, the candlesticks that have the fire on them? You lit the candles for Shabbos, you have the candlestick. Are you allowed to touch it? What is so everyone who is being taught about muktzah, you're taught not to touch muktzah. That's a safeguard. The real prohibition of muktzah is not to move muktzah. So that's the definition of muktzah, is not to make it move. In other words, if I have my pen here, if I touch my pen, is it going to move or not? Yes, it will. So then I'm not allowed to touch my pen because my pen is going to move. So then I would be told not to touch the pen, because by touching the pen, I'm going to move the pen. So therefore, usually when someone is being taught about muktzah, they're being taught not to touch muktzah.
So we can touch it?
So if it's not going to move, you could touch it.
Oh.
Now, let's take an example of something that's muktzah, and you are permitted to make use of it. Let's say you have a wash machine in your kitchen. Can you use the surface of the wash machine? I'm not speaking about a double one. I'm speaking of one that's one. Can you use your wash machine as a countertop? Wash machine is muktzah because its purpose is to wash dishes, which cannot be done on Shabbos. It's done with electrical and everything else. Can I use the wash machine as a countertop.
Technically you could, but like I would be worried that you might like press the buttons or some of them are like if you accidentally like stand too close or you turn the dial, like it
Push
turns
or
on
push the
or something.
okay, so that would be another concern that might start it. So if you would put something over it, put maybe a cloth over it. This is okay, so that's separate. Okay, but I'm just using this as an example. So the answer would be when you're going to be using it, is the dishwasher going to is the wash machine going to move or not? If it's steady, if it's balanced and it's steady, you could use it on top because you're not moving it. So you're allowed to touch it, you're allowed to put things on it, take things off. So that would be an example where you have right. So as far as that's why I'm using it more of a wash machine where it's not going to start by doing all the different things. I guess you have all the buttons and everything else that's there. But I'm just using this as an example that muktzah, you could touch muktzah if you know for sure it's not going to move. Back now to our tree. Our tree is growing. It is muktzah. Can you touch the tree? And the answer is,
Yes.
it matters how sturdy the tree is. At what point is this tree? If it's still a sapling, when you touch the tree, what's going to happen? It's going to move. You cannot touch it because it's muktzah and you're going to be moving the tree. Now, take another example. Another example is you have something that's in your shoe. You have a pebble in your shoe and you want to balance yourself in order to take the pebble out, shake it out. So that's what you're going to do. You've been standing on one foot, but you're not very steady on one foot. So you want to hold on to the tree to steady yourself while you take your shoe off, shake it, and put it back. Are you allowed to do that? So number one, we have to see if the tree is very sturdy. Okay, so now we have a solid oak tree. It's not going to move when you're going to touch it. So as far as that's concerned, you are permitted to touch it. Now, what you cannot do is make use of the tree completely. In other words, you could not lean against the tree where you're going to put your full weight on it. What would be the criteria? The criteria would be if the tree was to be removed, would you fall back? Or are you just using it for a support or just minimal? In other words, right now I'm sitting on a chair and I'm leaning against the back of the chair. If someone were to take away the back of the chair, I would not fall back because I'm sitting on the chair and I'm just using the back just to give it support. If I were to be sitting like this, and someone would take away the back of the chair, I would fall over. So that would be the same thing as also as far as the tree is concerned. If by putting your hand on the tree, you're just balancing yourself so much, it's just keeping you balanced. Basically, you're standing on your other foot. And the tree is only there to steady you. You are permitted to do so. If you're putting your full weight on the tree, so not by just holding onto it, but you're leaning against the tree completely and you're taking off your shoe, then if the tree were to be taken away, you'd fall back because you're leaning against the tree, not just supporting yourself by putting your hand on it, just balancing yourself. So here we have the making use of a tree is forbidden. You're not allowed to put your full weight on the tree. The same thing is also if are you allowed to sit on the grass on Shabbos? Can you make use of the grass on Shabbos? The answer is yes. Yes, you can make use of the grass on Shabbos. You can't pull out the grass, but you could sit on the grass. If you want to put a blanket and sit on that is fine. If you have a nice garden, you want to sit there for Shabbos, you may do so. If you also have a tree, can you sit against your tree? Again, the question is, how are you sitting? If you're sitting as the way you are on the chair, and just the tree is only giving you slight support, if the tree were to be removed, you would not fall over because you're actually sitting on the ground, then you're allowed to do so. Again, the tree is a strong, sturdy tree. If, however, you're putting your full weight on the tree by leaning back and you're just relaxing this way, then on Shabbos that cannot be done. Now, yes, okay, question.
You could cut the trunk for the all. I know there was one rabbi who he cut the trunk, but he didn't let go until after time was over.
I didn't have to know the circumstances. Maybe it was a weak tree, or else he was just being strict. But as far as halacha is concerned, muktzah is only if you move it. The tree is muktzah, and the story could be a little different. And just we'll go into now. Maybe there's a little different story to it. Okay. Now, since the possibility of a person who is involving themselves with a tree might pick something from the tree inadvertently, you're sitting up there are the leaves there, you're thinking about something you've learned in Rabbi Pape's class, and you pull a leaf off, so that might happen. So therefore, the restrictions on a tree are very, very strong. Number one, you cannot use the tree. Number two, you cannot use anything that extends from the tree. And you cannot use an extension of an extension directly. So what is that? So we have okay. We have a tree in Hebrew is Elon. Okay, Elon is a tree, and you have the side of a tree. Okay. Now, making use of the tree would be that you have there's a branch out of the tree. Are you allowed to take, again, you're in your garden, that's fenced in, so it's not a carrying issue. Are you allowed to take your jacket and put it on the branch of the tree? That is called making use of the tree itself, forbidden. So you cannot put a jacket on the branch of a tree, and if you did put it on Friday, and on Shabbos you want to remove it, you cannot remove it either because you're making use of the tree. So you cannot put anything on the tree or off the tree or on the branches of the tree. That is called Elon. That's the initial tree itself. Those are the prohibitions, making use of the tree itself. What happens if you have a hook coming from the tree, or you put a basket on the branch?
Like a tire
That's called a tire on the, we'll come to that soon. Yes, okay, you put on a tire on the branch, or it's you tied on a rope onto the branch, you tied on a swing to the branch. So that is the extension to the tree. That's called tzida ilan, also forbidden. So you cannot swing on this swing that is, the ropes are tied onto the branch. You could not put a basket on the branch and make use of the branch of the basket, taking things in or out of the basket. They're all an extension to the tree. Same would also be if there's a hook in the tree. You cannot put anything on the hook. You cannot take anything off the hook. You're making use of the tree. If something is now, we have now the next step. Is it possible to have a kosher swing from a tree on Shabbos? How would we make it kosher? You are allowed to swing or have a hammock. Everyone knows what a hammock is?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you sit down on your hammock, relax on Shabbos under the shade of the trees? How would it be permissible? So number one would be, okay, number one would be, is it sturdy? Is the tree a strong tree? That's our first thing that we're going to be looking at. If it's not strong, then everything is off. Nothing you can do.
But like, in order to like use those tire swings, like those are huge giant oak trees, like they're very
okay. So
sturdy.
it's going to be on that tree. So number one, we're establishing that the tree is a sturdy tree that's not going to move. That's not our issue, right?
What's the issue?
Oh no. So our issue is making use of the tree. So how could we make it so again You're not allowed to make use of the tree itself directly with tying on a rope onto the branch. Number two, you're not allowed to, if the rope is on, you're not allowed to use that swing. That's the Ilan.
So then how can you use
So
it?
now what we go is the next step is date studied. Okay. Now what we do is as follows. We have our tree Elon, that's number one. Before Shabbos, we put on a hook. That's number two, that's Sidei. And now we put on this hook, we're now also going to attach now our hammock. So now we did all of this on Friday, and also we do it in two steps. If the hammock or the swing is attached before Shabbos to the hook, then it's all one unit. We have to have it in stages. First put the hook into the tree. Then we're going to attach the swing to the hooks. Then that would be permissible. So now you could use the swing, you could use the hammock if it was done in two stages. So we started off with the Elon is number one. We're not making directly with that. We have Tzidei, we have the hook, and then we attach on Friday everything to the hook, because on Shabbos you cannot attach anything to the hook because that's making use of the Tzidei Elon, which cannot be done. So all of this is done on Friday, and you make it in two stages. So it's not considered one unit, that the swing and the whole contraption that goes with it and the hook is all one unit. It's two units. You attach the hook first, and to that you're going to put onto the hook, you're going to put your hammock or you're going to put your swing, and then you are permitted to use it on Shabbos.
Does that mean that it has to have three compartments, the tree, the rope hook, and then the actual seat?
Yes.
Or
And the ropes and everything else that goes along with it, could be chains, whatever else, how else you're ever going to do it. It's not just, but it's done in two stages. Now you have the tree, and then you have two stages. That's going to be Tzidei Elon and then Tzidei Stadin, because or else it's going to be, if it's only in one stage, then it's all one contraption and just is like the original hook. Everything, then you cannot make use of it. Okay. What about going to botanical gardens on Shabbos and enjoying the scenery and everything else? You see the foliage and nice. Are you allowed to smell the flowers that are attached?
Because they're not like holding it out.
Okay, the answer is yes, correct. Why would there be a concern? Why would you, why is it a question to begin with? If you're allowed to smell the flowers, first of all, you have to know, you have to make a bracha. If they are flowers of fragrance, you should make a bracha before you smell them. So,
you make a bracha to smell things like before anything, or what are the things?
no. So then you'll have the class, I guess, with Mrs. Nimni. But if you go to the it's only if you're doing it for the pleasure of the scent. If you go to the fruit market and you take out a melon and you smell it to see if it's ripe yet, you would not make a bracha. That's not your intention, is to have the fragrance. It's only if you're enjoying the fragrance, then you make the bracha. And it has to be something that is of a growth, something that actually comes from the ground. If it's the synthetic perfumes, you do not make a bracha. If it is perfumes that are made of actual, essence of actually plants, you would make a bracha on perfume. So the bracha, general bracha is borei minei bisamim. The same bracha that we make for after Shabbos, we make on the fragrance, make bisamim. However, it is if it is plant-like, you say borei izvei bisamim. If it is the tree-like, it's borei atzei bisamim. So, and if it is a fruit, you gave a good fragrance into the fruit if you're doing it exclusively for its fragrance. So that's if you don't know which bracha to make, it would be like a shahakel. You have the inclusive bracha, which is bori mini psamim. Everything is that's the inclusive bracha. And if you know the individual brachas, if it's plant-like, which means it doesn't have any body to it, it's so then it would be bori isvei. Esev is a grass. Isvei is plural. Eitz is a tree. Atzei is plural. So it's atzei psamim, isvei psamim. That would be it. So now the question is, back to our question, could you smell the flowers in the botanical garden? And the answer is yes. Because we're not concerned that you might pick them because they're there for growth. However, could you smell the fruit that are attached to a tree? And the answer to that is no. Because there's more of a chance that if it smells so delicious, you might forget it's Shabbos and you might. Okay, have a wonderful Shabbos and enjoy. So let's see. Came Chana, joined us.